Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent, eating, and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take this staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord, as he commanded him. Then in verse 10, Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly. And the congregation drank, and their livestock. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not believe in me, to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. Moses disobeyed. So what do we learn from Moses' disobedience, God's providence, and God's punishment? Daryl. Me and Aaron, we'll give you water. So you honor God. You give him thanks because he's the one that's the provider. What else? Yeah. Yeah. Back in Rephidim, he said, smack the rock. And I like the word smack. I don't think that's exactly what it said in the Bible, but I like that word. So obey God exactly is another thing that we can learn. What can we learn about God's providence? Sandy? Needed. So God showed compassion on the people. Even though Moses disobeyed, I'm still going to give you what you need. What else? Yeah. They took the credit. And we'll give you water. Well, one of the things that I learned that, we think very highly of Moses. But even a good man, even the best of men and women, will sin. And they'll reap the consequence of their sin. So knowing that, and knowing that we're all sinners, Romans 3:23, all fall short of all sin and fall short of the glory of God. Since we're all sinners, then we should cut each other some slack. Now, often I see people put up on pedestals, and when they prove to be human and prove Romans 3:23 right, people are really disappointed in them. And they don't look at themselves and recognize themselves as sinners too. Anything else? Any other comments? Okay. Mm-hmm. We all fall short. So, folks, we need to cut each other slack. We're all part of the body. We all have parts to play. And when one part is hurting, we need to bring that part back to health and into alignment with the head. Let's go to verse 14 of chapter 20 of Numbers. And I'm going to blaze through a couple of verses here. So I'm going like 14 to 17 and then 18 to 20. So my reading is not going to be exactly like your Bible. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Please let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from a well. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom said to him, You shall not pass through, lest I come out with the sword against you. But he said, You shall not pass. Now remember that Edom is from Esau, the lineage of Esau. So they're basically blood brothers. But he won't let them pass. Then continuing in verse 22, we're going to see the death of Aaron. And they journeyed from Kadesh, and the people of Israel, the whole congregation came to Mount Hor. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, Let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the people of Israel, because you've rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. And when all the congregation saw that Aaron had perished, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. And then we're going to move to chapter 21 of Numbers. And we're going to see somebody come out against Israel. When a Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negeb, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, If you will indeed give this people into my hand, then I will devote their cities to destruction. And the Lord heeded the voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites, and they devoted them and their cities to destruction. So the name of the place was called Ramah. And then basically, if you could see the slides, which you can't, I basically blazed through, it would be on your handout there, J through R. We're not even going to look at those. That's for your own reading. And then Moses makes a journal of the trek so far. And basically he recounts the Exodus, and then he takes them all the way to Moab. Now, one of the interesting things that I found about that journal is that when he talks about bringing water from the rock, which I think happened twice, some people think it only happened once. I think it happened at Rephidim, where he told them to strike the rock, and also near Kadesh Barnea, where he told him to speak to the rock. Moses only talks about Rephidim. Why do you think he only talks about Rephidim in his journal? He didn't want to remember the other one because he's embarrassed. You know, so some people, when they write in their journal, you only see their victories. It's like they're writing for the historians. They want only the good things in there. And other people, when they write in their journal, they put their deepest thoughts in there. They put the things they struggle with, the things that challenge them, the things that frustrate them, the things that make them anxious. And it looks like at Moses, in his journal, he's only going to put the victories. Let's go to Numbers 22. And we're going to meet Balaam. And one of the things that I found out this week that I might have learned it before and just forgotten it, or maybe I didn't, was secular historians, a lot of times they try to prove that characters in the Bible didn't actually exist. But secular historians acknowledge that Balaam was a real person. And there are Aramaic texts from the 6th century that were found in Jordan that, and there are quite a few of them, that contain Balaam's oracles and his prophecies. So I found that pretty interesting, that he's one of those characters in the Bible that they fully accept. Beginning in verse 1 of Numbers 22. Then the people of Israel set out and camped in the plains of Moab beyond the Jordan at Jericho. And Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was in great dread of the people, because there were many. Moab was overcome with fear of the people of Israel. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, "This horde will now lick up all that is around us, as the ox licks up the grass of the field." Now you have to remember, this is basically two agrarian societies, Midian and Moab, talking to one another, so they use language that they can understand. They're going to come through us like sheep or cattle graze a pasture. And cows, when they graze a pasture, they basically destroy it. You have to reseed a lot of times. Continuing in 22. So Balak the son of Zippor, who was king of Moab at that time, sent messengers to Balaam the son of Beor to call him, saying, "Behold, a people has come out of Egypt. They cover the face of the earth, and they are dwelling opposite me. Come now, curse this people for me, since they are too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall be able to defeat them and drive them from the land, for I know that he whom you bless is blessed, and he whom you curse is cursed." So he's basically trying to buttering up. I know, Balaam, if you bless somebody, they're blessed. They receive that blessing. If you curse them, they're cursed. And they receive only bad. Continuing in verse 7. Well, if we go on into Deuteronomy, we'll find out that the Moabites really had nothing to fear from the Israelites. Moab wasn't part of the promised land. God basically, I think it was in Deuteronomy chapter 2, tells Israel, leave Moab alone. That it's not part of the land that I promised you. And basically, up until that point, has Israel started any fight? They've only fought those who have come out against them. They've not started any fights. Moab, if he would have just left them alone, if Balak would have just left them alone, Israel probably would have just bypassed or asked permission to go through the land. But yet they were afraid. You see a big guy, and you may not even know that person, but they're a lot bigger than you, a lot wider than you, and immediately you're afraid. That's what they're seeing. They're seeing a people that are much bigger than, that could overrun them, and they're afraid. Beginning in verse 7. So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the fees for divination in their hand, and they came to Balaam and gave him Balak's message. And he said to them, "Lodge here tonight, and I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me." So the princes of Moab stayed with Balaam. "I will bring back word to you as the Lord speaks to me." And then in verse 9, and God came to Balaam and said, Who are these men with you? And Balaam said to God, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, has sent me, saying, Behold, a people has come out of Egypt, and it covers the face of the earth. Now come, curse them for me. Perhaps I shall be able to fight against them and drive them out. And God said to Balaam, You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed. So Balaam rose in the morning and said to the princes of Balak, Go to your own land, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you. So the princes of Moab rose and went to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with us. Why didn't Balaam tell them the whole story? Why did he just say, well, God says I can't go with you? I think if he would have said, look, God said that they are to be blessed, they may not have came back again with a second offer. But he didn't tell them the whole thing. Once again, Balak sent princes, more in number and more honorable than these. And they came to Balaam and said to him, Thus says Balak the son of Zippor, Let nothing hinder you from coming to me, for I will surely do you great honor, and whatever you say to me I will do. Come, curse this people for me. But Balaam answered and said to the servants of Balak, Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. Now, Balaam's really not a believer. He's not a Jew. But still he says, of the Lord my God to do less or more. You know, that's something that we could all take to heart. I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. And God came to Balaam at night and said to him, If the men have come to call you, rise, go with them, but only do what I tell you. So Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went with the prince of Moab. Then in verse 22. And, you know, when I read this section, I always think that certainly God has a sense of humor and can use anything to fulfill his purpose. But God's anger was kindled because he went. So why do you think, you know, God gave him permission, but why do you think God's angry?
I think God knows what's in his heart.
Okay. Yeah, Balaam never told him the full story. And it almost seemed like, boy, if God would just give me a reason to go with them, I'd go. You know, he's ready to go, but he's holding back because God has told him no. Has God ever told you no, and boy, you wanted to really do what he was refusing you to do? So God tells him to go. God's anger was kindled because he went, and the angel of the Lord took his stand in the way as his adversary. Now he was riding on the donkey, and his two servants were with him. And the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. And the donkey turned aside out of the road and went into the field. And Balaam struck the donkey to turn her into the road. Then the angel of the Lord stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. And when the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she pushed against the wall and pressed Balaam's foot against the wall. So he struck her again. Then the angel of the Lord went ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, she lay down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. Then the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and she said to Balaam, What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times? And Balaam said to the donkey, Because you have made a fool of me. I wish I had a sword in my hand, for then I would kill you. And the donkey said to Balaam, Am I not your donkey in which you have ridden all your life long to this day? Is it my habit to treat you this way? And he said, No. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way with his drawn sword in his hand, and he bowed down and fell on his face. And the angel of the Lord said to him, Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times? Behold, I have come out to oppose you, because your way is perverse before me. The donkey saw me, and I turned aside before me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have killed you and let her live. Then Balaam said to the angel of the Lord, I have sinned, for I did not know that you stood in the road against me. Now therefore, if it is evil in your sight, I will turn back. And the angel of the Lord said to Balaam, Go with the men, but speak only the word that I tell you. So Balaam went on with the princes of Balak. So the donkey can see the angel with the sword. And finally his eyes are opened. And he's ready to repent, ready to go back. But it takes basically threatening his life to get him to that point. When Balak heard that Balaam had come, he went out to meet him at the city of Moab, on the border formed by the Arnon at the extremity of the border. And Balak said to Balaam, Did I not send to you to call you? Why did you not come to me? Am I not able to honor you? Balaam said to Balak, Behold, I have come to you. Have I now any power of my own to speak anything? The word that God puts in my mouth, that must I speak. That'd be a good thing for all of us to say. The word that God puts in my mouth, that must I speak. Now, how do we get God's word from our brains to our mouths? We read it. We study it. We memorize it. The first blessing of Balaam, beginning in Numbers 23. And God met Balaam, and Balaam said to him, I have arranged the 7 altars, and I have offered on each altar a bull and a ram. And the Lord put a word in Balaam's mouth and said, Return to Balak, and thus you shall speak. And I've only got a little bit of the first blessing from 23, starting in verse 7. From a ram Balak has brought me, the king of Moab from the eastern mountains. Come, curse Jacob for me, and come denounce Israel. How can I curse whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce whom the Lord has not denounced? How can I curse whom God has not cursed? Look around you. You see people who are created in the image of God. People who Jesus died for. People who have value. Because God instilled that value in them. And how can we curse them? Curse whom God has not cursed. Continuing in verse 11. And Balak said to Balaam, What have you done to me? I took you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have done nothing but bless them. And he answered and said, Must I not take care to speak what the Lord puts in my mouth? Now, we're going to continue in verse 13. And there's an interesting concept that Balak introduces in verse 13 that we're going to talk a little bit about. And Balak said to him, Please come with me to another place from which you may see them. You shall see only a fraction of them, and you shall not see them all. Then curse them for me from there. So why does Balak think that if he takes them another place, then he'll be able to curse them? There's a concept called henotheism. And basically henotheism is that there is one God among many gods. And each family or tribe or nation or country or geographical place could have its own God. So it basically thinks, well, in this place, because his God was more powerful, he could only speak the blessing of his God. But maybe if we take him over here, where Chemosh, the god of Moab, well, maybe over here he's more powerful, and now he'll have to curse him. So he was just practicing henotheism. You know, we still have Hinduism, which would probably be along those same lines. I think somebody told me that there are like 300 million little g gods and goddesses in Hinduism. To me, that's just amazing. How do you keep track of them all? But you know, we see it practiced back in Genesis. Jacob and Rachel and Leah, they're fleeing from Laban, and Laban notices, you know, that they're gone and rushes out to them, but he has to have a reason to go chasing after them. So what does he say? Well, somebody stole the household gods, the household idols. And Jacob says, take a look around. And it was Rachel who had stolen the idols, and she put them in her saddlebag on her camel and was sitting on them. So Laban never found them. But basically, the family of Laban, they practiced that same thing. They had their household gods. They practiced henotheism. In the dictionary, it says the worship of a particular god as by a family or tribe without disbelieving in the existence of others. Collins English Dictionary said this: the worship of one deity of several as the special god of one's own family, clan, or tribe, nation, country, or geographical place. And the god of Moab was Chemosh, also known as the destroyer or the fish god. So here's the second blessing in verse 18. Rise, Balak, and hear. Give ear to me, O son of Zippor. God is not man that he should lie, or son of man that he should change his mind. Has he said, and will he not do it? Or has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? Behold, I received a command to bless. He is blessed, and I cannot revoke it. He has not beheld misfortune in Jacob, nor has he seen trouble in Israel. The Lord their God is with them. And again, Balak says to Balaam, do not curse them at all, and do not bless them at all. But Balaam answered Balak, did I not tell you all that the Lord says that I must do? And Balak said to Balaam, come now, I will take you to another place. Perhaps it will please God that you may curse them for me from there. And then the third blessing of Balaam, and I just have bits and pieces of it. God brings him out of Egypt and is for him like the horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries, shall break their bones in pieces and pierce them through with his arrows. Blessed are those who bless you, and cursed are those who curse you. And Balak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he struck his hands together. And Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have blessed them these 3 times. Therefore, now flee to your own place. I said I will certainly honor you, but the Lord has held you back from honor. And Balaam said to Balak, did I not tell your messengers whom you sent me? If Balak should give me his house full of silver and gold, I would not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord to do either good or bad of my own will. What the Lord speaks, that will I speak. And now behold, I am going to my people. Come and I will let you know what this people will do to your people in the latter days. And then in the final oracle, he basically tells about the destruction that's about to come for the countries around there. But we'll learn later in Deuteronomy that Balaam doesn't leave Moab. And he actually tries to get the women of Moab to intermarry with the Israelites and to bring them into idolatry. And later we'll find out that the Israelites kill Balaam because of this. So, even here where he's saying, well, I can only say what God has told me to say, I can only do what he has told me to do, he's still, why would he hang around Moab? Because he's still waiting for that payout that Balak has promised him. Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments.